You wouldn't believe it. An actor risked his life just for one scene. No CGI, no stunt double. Just one mistake, and coming back would have been impossible. But the real story is still to come. You don't want to miss this. Dear listeners, please subscribe my channel to hit 1,000 figure. It was the kind of stunt most people wouldn't even dream of doing. Not in their youth, and definitely not at 60 years old. But Tom Cruise isn't most people. In the heart of Hollywood, behind the closed doors of Paramount Pictures, and amidst planning for the biggest Mission Impossible film yet, there was one idea that silenced the room. A motorcycle, a ramp, a cliff, and a 4,000-foot drop into the abyss. No green screen, no wires, no stunt double. Tom Cruise wanted to ride a real motorcycle off the edge of a mountain in Norway, and while mid-air, release the bike and base jump into a canyon with only a parachute to save him. Most actors would laugh it off as madness. Most directors would shut it down as a liability. But for Cruise, it wasn't madness. It was the mission. Director Christopher McQuarrie didn't just approve the idea, he supported it. Why? Because when you work with Tom Cruise, you don't plan around safety nets. You plan for cinematic immortality. So the question wasn't, should we do it? It became, how do we do it without killing Tom? The stunt required not just nerves of steel, but a year's worth of physical training, custom-built equipment, and the kind of mental focus that only a few human beings on Earth possess. This wasn't just a movie stunt. This was going to be the most dangerous stunt ever performed by a lead actor in the history of cinema. And Tom Cruise? He was ready to bet his life for one perfect shot. The decision had been made. Tom Cruise would ride a motorcycle off the edge of a mountain and dive into thin air. No body double, no wires, no safety pads waiting below. Now came the part that separates a movie star from a legend. Training began immediately. But not your average gym sessions or cardio routines. Tom needed to learn two of the most dangerous extreme sports on Earth and master them. First, base jumping. If you think skydiving is dangerous, base jumping is like playing Russian roulette with gravity. The margin of error? Just a few seconds. Jump too early and the parachute opens wrong. Jump too late, and you're a stain on the rocks. Tom Cruise trained with the world's best military-grade skydiving instructors, base jumpers, and technical riggers. He didn't just jump from planes. He jumped again and again, from towers, bridges, and helicopters. Over the course of several months, he completed more than 500 skydives, each one bringing him closer to mastering freefall timing and control. But that was only half the mission. Next came motocross jumping. The motorcycle stunt was just as deadly. It wasn't enough to ride fast. He had to hit the ramp at the exact right angle, keep his body centered, then eject at the perfect moment in midair, letting the bike fall while he transitioned into a base jump. To get it right, Tom built a massive custom ramp and spent months practicing over 13,000 motocross jumps. That's not a typo. 13,000 jumps on a custom-built training ground every single day in every weather condition. Mud, wind, rain. He crashed, he flew off, he bled, but he always got back up. It wasn't about the movie anymore. It was about proving something to himself, that even at 60, When most men are slowing down, he could do something so insane, so dangerous, so real, that people would talk about it for decades. And while most actors would have used green screens, visual effects, and editing tricks, Tom Cruise was getting ready to jump off a cliff for real. After months of brutal training, injuries, and endless rehearsals, the day finally arrived. The crew gathered at the remote Helsetkoppen mountain in Norway, a towering cliff surrounded by mist, sharp winds, and endless sky. They had spent weeks building a custom launch ramp, stretching out from the cliff's edge like a finger daring fate. Multiple helicopters circled above, drones buzzed through the air, and every single camera was locked and loaded. There would be no second chances. The shot had to be perfect, or not at all. The early morning was cold and silent, the mountain soaked in a ghostly fog. The only sounds were the occasional flap of helicopter blades and the crunch of boots on gravel. Every crew member was tense. Even the stunt coordinators, hardened by years of dangerous scenes, were pale with worry, because this wasn't a controlled Hollywood set. This was real life, and Tom Cruise was about to defy death, live. Dressed in a black and gray motocross suit, his helmet under his arm, Tom walked toward the bike. His face was calm, almost unnervingly calm. Not cocky, not nervous, just focused, like a man stepping onto a battlefield. Director Christopher McQuarrie pulled him aside one last time. He didn't give a pep talk. He didn't ask if Tom was ready, because he already knew the answer. There was a moment, just before Tom climbed onto the motorcycle, where the mountain air seemed to freeze. Everyone held their breath. A few crew members whispered silent prayers. One wrong move, one miscalculation, one gust of rogue wind, and Tom Cruise would fall to his death in front of dozens of cameras. But Tom, he just smiled. He tightened his gloves. He threw his leg over the bike. He revved the engine, a low, rumbling growl that echoed against the cliffs like the roar of a coming storm. And then he launched. The motorcycle screamed down the narrow dirt track, gaining speed, racing toward the edge of the world. 40 miles per hour. 60, 80. At the last possible second, Tom hit the ramp perfectly, soared into the sky, and, with calculated precision, let go of the bike. For a split second, Tom Cruise was weightless, hanging between life and death, between earth and sky, a speck against the endless blue. The crew watched, frozen, as the motorcycle tumbled end over end into the canyon far below. Tom tucked into a tight ball, counted the seconds, and then, at exactly the right moment, deployed his parachute. A bright red canopy bloomed against the cliffs, and Tom floated safely down to the valley floor, landing with the grace of a man who had just cheated death and made it look effortless. The mountain erupted in cheers. Some crew members cried openly. Christopher McQuarrie was shaking his head, half in awe, half in disbelief. But Tom, he just pulled off his helmet, grinned, and said, "Let's do it again." Because one take wasn't enough. Tom Cruise would do the jump 6 more times that day, perfecting every angle, every moment, until he was satisfied. It wasn't about survival anymore. It was about immortality. From the outside, it looked perfect. Tom Cruise soared into the air, let go of the motorcycle mid-flight, deployed his parachute, and floated to safety, again and again, like clockwork. But what the audience didn't see was how close he came to serious injury or even death every single time. Behind the cameras, the stunt coordinators were on edge, because even with months of training, there were dozens of things that could go wrong, and some of them were completely uncontrollable. Let's start with the wind. Hellsetkopen Mountain isn't a friendly location. It's brutal, unpredictable, and surrounded by swirling air currents that change direction without warning. Tom's parachute deployment had to be timed down to the exact second. Too early, and the canopy wouldn't open correctly. Too late, and he'd hit the jagged rocks at terminal velocity. And in the middle of a gust, he could spin out of control, smash into the cliff wall, or have his lines tangle mid-air. Even the drones filming him posed a threat. There were over a dozen drones and camera angles used to capture the stunt. If just one of them got too close or malfunctioned during the freefall, it could have collided with Tom or his parachute rig, causing catastrophic failure at 200 feet in the air. But it wasn't just the fall that was risky. It was the motorcycle. Tom had to ride full throttle down a narrow dirt ramp on the edge of a cliff. The tires could slip. The engine could misfire. The ramp surface could change texture. He was accelerating to high speeds with no brakes, no backup, and no margin for error. And then, perhaps the most terrifying part was the timing of the ejection. Letting go of the bike at the exact right millisecond wasn't just for cinematic effect. If he held on too long, he could have been entangled in the bike during freefall, leading to a deadly collision mid-air. If he let go too early, he wouldn't reach the necessary distance for a clean parachute deployment. One stunt coordinator later admitted, "It wasn't just risky, it was near suicidal. If anything went wrong, it would have been over in seconds." Even Tom's parachute system was customized. A low-profile rig designed specifically for the camera angles, meaning there was no reserve chute, no second chance, no backup plan. And yet, he jumped. Again and again, 6 times. All with the understanding that every single take might be his last. When asked later why he insisted on doing it himself, Tom simply said, "I want the audience to know. When they see me do it, they can feel it's real. That's what makes it powerful." That power came at a cost, risk, fear, danger, and the kind of discipline only someone obsessed with cinematic authenticity could endure. In that moment, Tom Cruise wasn't just an actor. He was a man who looked death in the face and said, "Let's roll cameras." When the footage of the stunt finally made its way into the trailers for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, the internet erupted. Audiences couldn't believe it was real. The image of Tom Cruise flying a motorcycle off a cliff and then free-falling into a canyon before opening his parachute didn't just go viral. It redefined what people expected from action movies. And then came the behind-the-scenes featurette. Over 9 minutes long, packed with raw training footage, intense close-ups, and heart-pounding drone shots of the actual jump. The video trended globally, with tens of millions of views within days. Fans couldn't get enough. Because this wasn't just a stunt. It was a statement, a message to the industry and to fans that cinema is still alive, that real, visceral, breath-stealing action isn't dead, that not everything has to be green screen, AI, or CGI. Sometimes you just need one man crazy enough to risk it all for the sake of real storytelling. In an era where most actors don't even run their own Instagram accounts, Tom Cruise was out here jumping off mountains, pulling his own parachute, and making sure every frame was authentic. And it worked. Critics hailed the stunt as one of the greatest ever captured on film. Directors and stunt teams around the world studied it. Even hardened professionals, people who'd seen it all, called it historic. But beyond the cinematic impact, the stunt said something deeper about Tom Cruise himself. It proved that he isn't just play. At an age where most leading men take supporting roles, Tom is still doing things that professional athletes wouldn't attempt. And not just for thrill, but for art, for the audience, for the love of the craft. So when people say they don't make movie stars like they used to, Tom Cruise just smiles and jumps off another cliff. Because in a world full of digital shortcuts, one man keeps proving the most powerful thing in cinema is when it's real.